Природонаучниот музеј во Скопје представува депо каде се чува македонскиот национален биодиверзитет. Биодиверзитет или биолошка разновидност представува разновидност на животни форми на оваа планета. Ги опфаќа и живите организми и екосистемите. Во оваа трета декада од 21 век веќе не е тајна дека биолошката разновидност полека исчезнува. А ова состојба ја утврдува и извештајот за проценка за состојбата на биолошка разновидност и екосистемски услуги спроведена од меѓувладината платформа за политики во науката за екосистеми и биолошка разновидност. Они утврдија дека биолошката разновидност се намалува. Дома разговараше со авторите на овој извештај, професорите Едуардо Брондизио и Јосеф Сетеле.
Quite importantly, we highlighted in our assessment the risk of extinction. So we stated that about 1 million species are prone to extinction in the next decades if we don't counteract. That was one of the key statements. It would be 1 million if you assume we have 8 million species globally, which is kind of debated. Could be less, could be more, but never mind. So 1 out of 8. And we did this analysis based on data where we have, let's say, good information on vertebrates or plants, for example. Where based on IUCN criteria, we assume that about 1/4 of species are risking extinction in the near future.
I think the evidence is very clear about the rate of decline and the threat to biodiversity now forward. So many forces have been combining to put pressure on biodiversity. Right? Land use change, resource extraction, climate change, pollution, and invasive species are the 5 main factors that are driving this change in this order. Now, what is important to see is that biodiversity decline is one indicator of many other kinds of degradation that we are observing and documenting. Now, it gets a lot of attention because it encapsulates all these other changes, right? When we lose a species completely.
Македонија и Балканот представуваат жешки точки на биолошката разновидност. Но за жал, малкумина од нас се свесни за природните вредности и бенефити што доаѓаат од видовото разнообразие.
In awareness, we surely have, let's say, a positive trend. Many, let's say, parts of the society, there is an increasing awareness of the necessity of biodiversity and also of our dependence on it.
Awareness is one of the top goals. Right, to make sure that people understand the value of the environment in their lives. And there's progress in that regard. So when we look in the past 10 years, we see that environment is slowly moving from something out there, something disconnected from the lives of people, to an understanding that it's closely related to the economy, it's closely related to quality of life, and it affects our lives every day. Now, there is growing awareness of large global problems. Climate change, biodiversity decline, ocean pollution, ocean acidification. Those issues have become much more popular or much more kind of disseminated among the larger public. So it's growing.
Климатските промени се научен факт и реалност. Како што иде времето, ние се повеќе ги искусуваме, а некои видови веќе го живеат тоа. Ние не знаеме дали човекот апсолутно влијае на сите видови и ги води до исчезнување, но знаеме дека човекот е забрзувач на овој процес.
We have some quite interesting data on butterflies, but also on bumblebees, for example. Bumblebees are known to be, let's say, living mainly in more temperate climates, and they're more heavily affected by, let's say, warmer conditions. So this is one of the groups where we can see that species are withdrawing from Mediterranean areas, maybe from the Balkan, I'm not sure, but I could imagine. But also, let's say, Mediterranean, and we have, let's say, some of them migrating north, but many of them just decreasing. And also in the mountain areas, you have the effect that some of them are, let's say, only found further up compared to earlier times.
So you have many communities that are not extinct or close to extinct, but they are threatened because the population size has been very reduced and the habitat size has been very reduced. Biodiversity in terms of endangered species is one big red flag because it encapsulates many of this other change, but it's part of a much larger array of changes that affect ecosystem functioning as well, and therefore affects us very directly.
Пандемиите и биолошката разновидност се тесно поврзани. Како се намалува бројот на диви видови, така се зголема можноста за појава на зарази кај човечката популација. Ова што се случува сега е само можен приказ за идните големи катастрофи.
Recently, of course, in the context of the pandemic as well, because viruses are also part of nature. So they come from somewhere, so they're out there. So you can say if you have high diversity of viruses, you have more risks. You can also say if you have high diversity, there's a lower risk for pandemics to, let's say, to happen, because you have less zoonotic events, because you have less concentration of one species in one place. So there's this kind of what it's called dilution effect.
I think the pandemic gave us a glimpse of the potential of when you exacerbate inequality of the kinds of cascade impact it has on all of us, right? So I think that's the consequences of significant potential for social unrest in many places, for huge social problems, as we see already with the pandemic, but not necessarily many areas of where you're seeing extreme events, whether drought, whether flooding, is displacing hundreds of thousands of people.